Mailing out money, anything, ayy. Ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I am rolling solo today because I'm trying to incorporate more actual market strategies and everything into the show. And that's what we're going to be doing today, you guys. We are going to be leading in with a freight market report based on the data that I personally use inside of my operation and kind of how I assess things going. And then also we're going to go through a couple of articles on what I think are some like the leading indicators overall on like what could affect the freight market going into 2026. We're going to go in a little bit more in depth on how the market will probably progress and shift. Again, I put out a post about that this morning. It was, I know, 3 minutes long, which in social media world is an eternity, but it's really hard to summarize my thoughts in 30 seconds or less. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in depth on here as well. Also, one quick reminder, you guys, I did today dropped our weekly newsletter. So if you want to jump in to get it, it only drops every single Wednesday. I need you to go to thefreightcoach.com though to register for it. I do that because I don't want to auto sign you guys up for anything if I have your contact information. If you want to receive the email, I want you to actually sign up for it, because I get kind of annoyed, just like I'm sure the majority of you do, every time there's a new newsletter that pops up or a new email that pops up in your inbox and you have no idea how it got there. But if you just go to thefreightcoach.com, register for it there, and we will go. But let's get into some market information. It's funny when you scroll through social media, you think the world is ending, and seemingly the bickering is starting to pick back up out there. Again, rightfully so. Drivers feel extremely disrespected. Carriers feel extremely disrespected out there, and it seems like there's some pockets where they are definitely charging a lot more than they were, say, pre-Thanksgiving. But again, I like to look at a lot of these this is kind of what normally happens during the holidays, especially between Thanksgiving and New Year's. And again, it's the free market, right? If you're going to live by the spot market and you're going to die by the spot market, you got to be able to play the game out there. Sometimes you're going to make money, sometimes you're not. But it's seemingly there are some people out there digging their heels in on what they are now quoting for freight. And some people are not happy, but I like to sit back and eat my popcorn and just kind of watch the bickering go back and forth, because it's kind of funny in my opinion. But we're going to be talking about this here, you guys. And again, in the new year, there may or may not be an actual freight coach data partner that is going to be doing a few market reports throughout the week. We're going to be probably summarizing dry van, reefer, flatbed, the three main modes out there. We may or may not be breaking all of this down using a lot of data to kind of show you guys what's actually going on out there. And again, I'm going to give you guys my opinion on how things are from somebody who actually moves freight, from somebody who actually cold calls shippers all the time, who is out there building a brokerage. I'm in it, and we're going to be potentially, I always want to say potentially, but we're going to be doing it, you guys, in the new year. We're going to be talking about it a lot more in depth because there's a lot of numbers that are thrown out there all the time. And how do you strategize that? How do you implement that into your operation? But most importantly, how do you win more freight? I do this, and I say this because I can't handle everything. There's plenty of shippers out there that we would be doing them a disservice at the current size of our company by trying to go in there and sell them on our capabilities. There's only so much we can handle. And, so from our perspective, it's how do we go about and build this up, build that sustainability? Because, anybody can win in the short term, but it's like I'm building a business and a book of business to last, pun intended, the long haul here. So it's like we're going to go through that. And that's going to be a heavy, heavy emphasis on next year's content, you guys, on the show. We're going to be doing a lot more data-driven conversations out there throughout the week, and we're going to be really putting that information out there because, again, I get just as confused at times as I'm sure some of you guys do. Maybe I do because I went to public school, and I have a hard time with some of this information that I see out there because it seems like people are speaking in hyperbole, and I look at it as, the freight market it's pretty cut and dry at the end of the day. But data that's out there, this is data that I personally use inside of my organization. And I make the decisions for my business based on this. And so the U.S. freight market is tightening as we head into December. Spot markets are on the rise. Capacity is shrinking. Regulatory enforcement is starting to reshape the industry. Recent trends are showing dry van rates are increasing for 3 consecutive weeks out there, reflecting growing pressure on available capacity. Dry van spot rates that are out there, you guys, are $223 a mile. Flatbeds are $253 a mile. And reefer is $262 a mile out there. And then if we scroll down here a little bit more, sorry, I put this nice little chart together out here. So again, we look at this. If we're looking at December right now, so for dry vans, $223 a mile that was out there. Back in October and November, it didn't change at all. It was at $2.07 a mile. So if we're looking at that, obviously there's a spike out there. But again, what are you seeing? You got to factor in these holidays that come along with it here. Thanksgiving is the big thing. And, again, weather is also a major factor out there. I mean, the Midwest, from everything I'm seeing, at least where I'm from back in Minnesota, is actually having a winter out there. So again, those are some of those effects on capacity that's going to cause tender rejections to rise in certain instances. But again, I like to look at these data points on more than a day-by-day or a week-by-week basis. I like to look at it on like weeks because, again, I want to point to those factors of what causes it. Because, again, if there's a spike over a short-term period, that can be attributed to a holiday or a 4-week period where there's 3 holidays, and that could cause a spike in pricing. So, again, I think a lot of people out here, this is how it normally happens in the past. A bit like, and then also with refrigerated freight, that's up like it was at $262 a mile here recently. But again, back in October and November, it was at $248 a mile. So again, there's a spike. Refrigerated freight is affected by that holiday push. I think that you are going to probably see a blip of an increase. And I say a blip because I want to see how things are looking, say mid-January. I know that's 30 days from now. How could we possibly wait 30 days? But again, you have to look at that stuff as you're going out there with a lot of this data, because again, it's going to show an inflationary trajectory that's going to go up here for a little bit. But again, we're going to attribute it to the holidays. And then again, by mid-February, January, is it going to look the same? Probably not. If it is, that's an indicator. If those rates continue to climb, even post-holiday into mid-January, that would be a data point that I would really, really, really want to pay attention to, because that means things could potentially be changing. Again, I'm not going to go out there and say that I think it's going to, but we look at that though. And then again, we look at flatbed though. Obviously it is not flatbed season anymore for anybody who moves it like we do, because we're like 100% flatbed. We see it, right? Rates are steady. Capacity is up. And that's probably going to continue for the next 90 days, I would say. 90 days. I would say about early March is when you potentially see that rates change out there. So again, it was at 253 here in December, but November and October were at 251. So again, base, it was nothing out there as a whole. Obviously, there is a tender rejection are starting to increase out there. And again, that's a sign to pay attention to. But again, when we can attribute it to the holidays, again, there's those parallels that I like to draw out there. Obviously, and then again, overall, what are we looking at here? Clearly, the current administration is pushing and going to continue to push non-domiciled. They're going to continue to push the visas and everything else, and they're going to try and get to the bottom of that. That is a reference point that I think you could potentially draw. But again, Is it going to make as big of a difference as social media and the media make it out to be? You never know. It's still too early to tell. And then obviously the ELP violations that are going to continue, and the DOT crackdowns on CDL schools, and also the ELD companies that they are going after as well. I think those are two things that could potentially continue to do some things. But again, I think it's still way too early to tell out there. But like I've always said, the operations that are running right in legal, you guys are about to have a very good time when things flip. You're going to be definitely have the upper hand per se, and really get on with replenishing the war chests out there. But analysts out there, Citibank and Morgan Stanley project rate increases due to capacity tightening and regulatory enforcement. But again, a lot of that is just going to be based off of high level information. I still think it's too early to make any bold predictions for 2026. My bold prediction is things are going to level out, and it's not going to change at all from a new opportunities perspective. And it does start to talk about, though, and this is another thing, private fleets are pausing expansions, and bankruptcy related exits are further reducing capacity. So, again, if private fleets aren't expanding anymore, maybe they're not as down with operating their own trucks as much as they thought they might have been when they privatized their fleet. So again, those are some potential things that I think is definitely worth paying attention to as we're going into 2026 as a whole. But again, I just want you guys to really pay attention to those things. All right. Like I had talked about, my thing is in 2026, you guys, I look at it from a new business development perspective that's out there. Again, I cold call every single day. I just don't think that they're going to look out of their current network or have a need to look outside of their current network. And that's not me saying, and that this is more geared towards the brokers. Drivers rates, if they do go up, I think obviously you guys are going to benefit from that. But I look at it from a manufacturer standpoint, shipper standpoint that's out there. They probably have enough capacity in their network right now that in the event a couple of them fall off, go under, or if there is any disruptions, failure happens and they get kicked out, I think their current network is going to absorb any and all volume that we could see for the foreseeable future. And like I said in my post, you guys, I hope I'm wrong. My brokerage will highly benefit from me being wrong here. But again, I just like to call balls and strikes as I see them. And I don't know. I think that there isn't a massive increase in freight volume that is happening out there at all. And I think that there's if we're just looking at it in its basic economic terms, supply and demand still aligns. There's still adequate trucks on the road to handle the current freight volumes that are out there. I think another massive data point that you guys need to pay attention to, and I was just talking about this last week with Cody Kaler on the show, is the Federal Reserve, right? Like we need interest rates to drop. And I think that would be, if that drops at a high level, like I'm talking like they actually drop it at the way that they, people were anticipating, I think that could be a big headwind of opportunity into 2026. But again, at today's current terms, I just don't see anything potentially changing. But again, you got to get out there and you got to make those dials, ladies and gentlemen. But let's jump in. Let's break down some articles here, you guys. First article, ttnews.com. And this is the one that I want to talk about because I think personally, the flatbed market is the biggest indicator on how the freight market actually performs. And I know there's a lot of people who agree with that. I'm sure some people disagree with that, and that's fine. But I just look at it is if new warehouses are being built, new homes are being built, people are spending money. It's one of those things that I like to pay attention to as how things are going. You guys are all aware of Home Depot. We share the same colors. I like shopping at Home Depot, but they are cautious in 2026 on their outlook on what is going on. Give me just 2 seconds here. There we go. Home Depot has issued a cautious preliminary 2026 guidance. It expects comparable store sales will be flat to up 2%, which is below many analyst estimates out there. The subdued guidance reflects macroeconomic headwinds, particularly the sluggish U.S. housing market and high interest rates, both of which are discouraging for consumers taking on big ticket home improvement products. As a result, Home Depot appears to be bracing for a less robust year ahead. Growth may be limited rather than dynamic, signaling potential softness in a customer demand for large home improvement and renovation spending. Again, outside of interest rates, you guys, consumer credit card debt is another one that I pay attention to out there. And, I know that there are people in the media who are talking about how great things are and how prices are going down everywhere. And again, I call balls and strikes. I buy my groceries every single week. Prices haven't gone down. All right, at all. If anything, they've probably increased in certain areas. And I know people always like to talk about the price of eggs and stuff, but like my gas hasn't gone down at all either. So again, if I'm looking at it and I'm trying to be extremely fiscally responsible with how I operate out there, I don't see and I'm just drawing my parallel between consumer credit card debt being at an all-time high, interest rates still being high as well. And then Home Depot putting this out there. I mean, they're right. There are direct correlations to this, you guys. It's like you're not going to remodel your kitchen or look to buy a new home if you can't buy groceries, or if you can't afford to put gas in your car. And so to me, it's like and that just drives into the freight market as a whole. It's one of those things that I think are the big things that people aren't talking about, because no matter what, you can boast about how great you think the economy is performing, and it might be on Wall Street, but what about Main Street where we all live? And I think that's the parallels that Home Depot is drawing out there, that like people aren't going to renovate their kitchen if they can't put food in their kitchen. And that's kind of what their report was talking about here. To put it into context, for fiscal 2024, Home Depot reported a full year sales of $39.7 billion in Q4, but only modest comparable store growth, 0.8% out there. And in the US, it was like 1.3% in Q4. Moreover, earlier in 2024, Home Depot had faced sharper headwinds in a 52-week period. They had a sales decline of 4%. Again, 4% of 40 billion, quite a lot of money. Again, I went to public school, so I'll spare you in me trying to do the math. For a company that used to be a bellwether in home improvement and renovations, flat comps could be a signal, of broader softness in consumer demand, which might reflect macroeconomic headwinds. Again, pay attention to that. You're not going to remodel your kitchen if you can't put food in your kitchen. That's how I would operate. And then again, interest rates out there. They're also, but like with high interest rates being there, they're attributing that historically, when interest rates climb, mortgages become more expensive, reducing mobility, home sales, and discouraging large renovation or financing heavy projects. This rate shock tends to suppress demand for major home improvements. I mean, maybe they'll go out there and offer an interest-free credit card for their people, and then that could spike, some things. I'm sure there's probably a lot of large retailers that will do something like that if everything continues down its current path, just to try and spike sales as a whole. But and this is, again, that trickle down effect about the flatbed freight kind of being the indicator for the freight market as a whole. This is going to stop contractors in their tracks potentially. I hope not, but like that's that downstream effect. And then again, if people aren't buying home, lumber mills aren't producing, pipe isn't being laid, concrete's not being laid, all of that stuff, that's, it's all directly attributed to it. And that's why I look at that as the clear indicator on how the market is going to potentially perform out there. But again, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic in the sense of like, I need to be an optimist out there because, again, I'm self-employed. I'm out there trying to build my business. I am 100% a flatbed broker as well at the end of the day. But again, I think that this is a very big thing. I would definitely pay attention to when Home Depot is speaking, Lowe's, even pay attention to, a lot of the building material stores that are out there as well that are publicly traded. Those are other little insights and tips and tricks into kind of how things are performing out there as a whole. Because if people aren't building, they're not renovating due to the fact that groceries are through the roof and their credit cards might be maxed out and everything else, I would assume they're not going to buy a new TV if they can't buy food for their home or put gas in their cars. But that article, you guys, is from ttnews.com. Home Depot issues cautious 2026 outlook. Now, we're going to switch gears here a little bit. Anytime my man Adam Wingfield puts some stuff out there, I always stop and read it because Adam's a really good friend of mine, and I very much respect his opinion on everything in regards to the trucking industry. So this article was from FreightWaves, and this is, again, it's talking about non-domiciled CDL drivers and highway safety, what the numbers say, what they don't, and how social media fills the gaps. There's a heated debate, obviously, out there. If you're not on like X or Twitter at all, that's where a lot of this is happening, and a lot of the garbage that's being spewed out there definitely happens on Twitter. But they want to talk about if the non-domiciled CDL holders correlate to higher increased highway accidents. The federal agency responsible, the FMCSA, does not track crash data by driver citizenship, immigration status, or whether the CDL is non-domiciled. Meanwhile, national crash data from 2021 to 2025 shows a decline in total crash involvement, fatal crashes, non-fatal crashes, and injuries, even as issuances of non-domiciled CDLs has increased. Because of this mismatch, it's probably not possible to have a conclusive connection between the two. I would also say that, again, there are some real issues between CDL issuances and licensing fraud. And I look at this because, again, and I really hope that the FMCSA, I really hope that they actually start studying this at a high level. I'm sure they will. I'm sure it's on their radar to go out there. But, again, you can't point the finger in a certain direction if there's no hard data to back it up. Otherwise, it's just opinion. And again, that's in my entire media and social media strategy with everything is I really wait to talk about a lot of stuff because I kind of want to see some more information come out, because I'll let everybody else argue about if this or that is the real core of the problem without looking at the data. They can do that. I like to look at the data because, I try and make the best assessment on what I see. But again, if we're looking at a growing number of CDLs, but a decrease in total crashes, it's kind of hard to draw that parallel that is out there. Again, and in the current administration, Secretary Duffy, FMCSA, everybody is Minnesota just got popped. The state of Minnesota just got popped for some stuff. They're now next on the list for threatening to have their funding removed from the non-domiciled stuff that is out there. And again, I think there's, the more and more research that I've done on this, there's the people who were here on a visa that were issued a CDL that shouldn't have been issued a CDL because their visa doesn't allow them to. In my opinion, those people should be off the road, obviously, immediately. But, like I've talked about in the past, if you have a visa and you filed it the right way and you're paying your taxes and you're doing all that stuff, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that from my assumption, though, as a whole, I think that the DOT and the FMCSA are on the right path. They are, with the ELDs, removing illegal ELDs, devices from the market, going after finding the illegal operations. Those are the ones we need removed. I've already talked about that enough. I'm not going to go into it anymore. If you want to hear my opinion on it, pull up my last two solo shows. I go way more in depth to it. And frankly, I'm kind of sick of talking about that because, the data is the data when it boils down to it. But again, we need to remove any and all illegal operations from the roads, plain and simple. But, again, I think this is, from my perspective, you guys, this is like what I see in this article as a whole. There's a lot of really, really, really good information, but I think it draws an important parallel that you can't just go to Twitter for your stuff. I know that's a lot of people's strategy. And, again, I openly want you guys to check all of the articles that I talk about. Do your own research on this stuff. Because again, if you're going to go out there and proclaim a certain thing, it has to be backed in truth, not emotion. And I feel like most people just speak on emotion because, again, they want to blame something but themselves for why their business is failing. All right. It's not easy. Building a business is not easy. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do if you're ever going to go out there and try and make something of yourself. And yes, there are some economic factors that can cause some certain headwinds for you as a whole. But at the end of the day, you guys, there is no boogeyman that you can point to that says it. I give massive props to the DOT and the FMCSA for seemingly taking the right first steps. But again, it's still very early on in this entire process to see what they're going to actually uncover. And to summarize, all illegal operations need to be off the road, plain and simple. But that article is from FreightWaves. My man Adam Wingfield put it up. Again, I want you guys to read it. Pay attention. Follow Adam out there. All right. He cites his sources. Everything's out there, you guys. Do that. The title of the article, Non-Domiciled CDL Drivers and Highway Safety, what the numbers say, what they don't, and how social media fills the gap. Now I want to kind of end it here with, I saw my good friend Angel Coker Jones release an article. We've met a few times in person at the NMFTA Cybersecurity Conference, and she put out an article from ccjdigital.com. Lack of respect is a top reason of why fleets lose drivers. Shocking, right? I think that a lot of people out there have left a job, maybe not for more pay, but for a better working environment as a whole. Who would have thought? But it talks about, respect is equally as important to pay out there. 73% of respondents citing it as a key factor of staying with the fleet. Other top concerns include a lack of support, insufficient home time, career growth opportunities, inadequate miles, and poor equipment. And then comfort and quality of equipment like premium seats, sleeper, APUs are also critical, reflecting respect for a driver's well-being out there. And then and it goes a long way. So again, I'm not a driver. I've never been a driver, but I'm a human being. I think respect is, the number one thing that I look for in a lot of relationships that I have with people, that mutual respect. And it, from my perspective, it's like, what are you doing to retain drivers? Because I think that, again, depending on how things shake out here with a lot of the headlines in the industry regarding drivers as a whole, what's going to happen? I think that, again, depending on where things go, depending on how the market performs, there might be very lucrative opportunities for your drivers to leave your company to go work for somebody else. And again, how is that going to shake out? Are you treating your drivers the way that you actually want to be treated? Is your equipment up to date and everything else? But again, are you actually there to work with your drivers, or are you treating them as a commodity? And, I look at it as the brokers, yeah, you're not responsible for how a fleet treats the drivers, but from a broker's perspective, what are you doing out there to make your drivers' lives easier, right? I look at it like this. Drivers, the companies that we contract with to haul our customers' freight, are a literal direct representation of myself and my organization out there in the market. I want to set them up for success. All right. I want to do everything in my power to make them succeed in hauling my customers' freight, because, again, we're going to our customer at the end of the day. And, it's one of those situations that we all need to look at, what more can we do to make this industry better? Because again, it doesn't matter what's happening in DC or at the state level or anything else. You guys, we're the ones who are actually operating in this industry. We're the ones who have to make the improvements in this industry. And it's got to start and stop with us no matter what. And again, I feel like as brokers, again, this article is talking about the correlations between driver retention and fleets, but as a broker, what more can you do to set your drivers up for success out there? Because I see social media just as much as the next guy. And it's pretty disheartening what goes on out there as a whole. And we just have to be better with it. Again, respect goes a long way, and it can start and stop with you too as the broker. But that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. We got more guests coming on this week, tomorrow and Friday. We got some guests coming on. But as always, you guys, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to